Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sai will recite the board norms.
Assume good intentions, strive for a consensus, accept with all respect, and listen to hear and understand.
Thank you. Lori, would you recite the board norms at the March 24th meeting?
I'm still asking that we review them and decide if this is what we want for our norms. So I'll pass, let somebody else read the old norms.
Okay. Joe, would you recite the board norms? Thank you. 1 second here. Be resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the agenda as presented. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Gavin motioned. Sherilyn, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? And we have, let me see, okay, somebody here. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 6, right? Okay, thank you. So, in accordance with Public Officers Law, Section 96, Subdivision 1, I'd like to call for an executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person and legal matters. We have a motion? Janet, second?
Second.
Joe? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, time is 6:03. Okay, the executive session adjourned at 6:40. Call for a motion to reconvene in open session.
Motion.
Of outstanding STEM, so science, professional learning that we value, and the high standards that we set for ourselves as educators. So on behalf of the district, I'd like to congratulate Amy for this recognition. We're grateful for your dedication to students and your pursuit of professional learning. So please join me in celebrating Amy Warlock in this outstanding achievement. Rob.
Congratulations. Alicia, are there any requests to address the board?
Yes, for this period, we have two requests. The first one is Whitney Meeker regarding the traffic pattern change at his school.
Okay, welcome and thank you for being here tonight. The Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education values hearing from our community. If you signed up with the district clerk, you're invited to share your comments now, but please keep these remarks to 3 minutes. And if you run out of time, you're welcome to submit written comments to the board for review. Before speaking, please state your name and share your contact information with the clerk for follow-up. While the board won't respond directly during the session, all comments are noted and thoughtfully considered. And to protect privacy, any concerns about specific students or employees should be directed privately to the superintendent. And please keep comments respectful and in line with our district code of conduct. We appreciate your time, your perspective, and your commitment to our schools. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You cut into my 3 minutes, though.
I'll give you extra.
So I get gratis, more minutes? Okay. My name is Whitney Meeker, and I live on Wheeler Avenue. And I am here on behalf of some of our residents on Wheeler Avenue that could not be with me tonight to ask for a traffic pattern change. In that, we would like to be kind of like Berry School. They go around their parking lot and they come out. Wheeler Avenue, in the morning at drop-off, they line the streets. In the afternoon, that's not too bad. We can live with that. But in the afternoon, they start lining up at 1:30 in the afternoon for a 3 o'clock and after dismissal. And they line both sides of the street. And the problems we're having is that they are blocking driveways, blocking fire hydrants, and there's 2 fire hydrants in play on this one. I've had people sitting in my driveway and, who are you? I'm waiting for my kid. That wasn't the question. Who are you? And it's kind of like, well, let me call the police. and I'll start with my tire iron with your headlight, side view mirror, taillight, side view mirror, and headlight, because you're trespassing. Get off of my property. My neighbor, he had a gentleman standing on his porch one day. I'm waiting for my kid. Come on. Well, it's kind of, it's overwhelming, and it's kind of, we've endured enough. We've had enough. Trash, they will rut the easements, they drive right up on the easement. I have rebar stakes on my easement to keep them off my easement. But trespassers and trash and being called names that I will not repeat, that I'm just asking if you will kindly get with Common Council, because they've got to do signage, and it involves having traffic rerouted down Wilson Place to the back of Smith School and around the parking lot and back out again. And I'm just asking for some relief, please. Anybody, did I do my 3 minutes? Did I do good? Okay. Any questions? And please understand, I'm deaf, so it's kind of, if you want to ask me a question, you're going to have to yell.
I'll just say I was a Smith student, K through 6, and grew up.
I'm sorry.
So I was a Smith student, K through 6, and grew up right around the corner. So I understand that's not a new issue.
No, it's not. I mean, we were at a meeting for the DPW because we wanted the signage changed too. And one fellow said, my kids are 21 and 26, and it's been like that forever. Just because it's been like that forever.
Right.
The society has changed, and they are astonishingly entitled to my driveway, and I'm getting a little tired of it.
I understand.
So,
Well, thank you for coming in. and
Appreciate you
Thank
bringing
you
that
for
to our
listening.
attention. Thank you.
Okay, and next is Jennifer Phelan, who would like to talk about Chicane driver education in high school.
Thank you. I heard what you said the first time. Do you need to say it again?
No.
Okay. So good evening. My name is Jennifer Phelan. I'm supposed to tell you that, right? I'm a parent of 2 students from the district. My son graduated in 2024, and my daughter is currently in 11th grade. And I want to express how grateful we were that the high school was able to offer driver's ed last summer. We had a lot of friends that took advantage of it. My daughter is an August baby and wasn't old enough, so here I am again to talk about the importance. So I'm here tonight with fellow parents to show support for the district offering driver's ed. In the curriculum for our students. Every year in the United States, motor vehicle crashes are among the leading causes of death for teenagers. According to federal safety data, novice teen drivers are in car crashes at a much higher rate than adults. In fact, teens are 3 times more likely to be involved in a fatal crash compared with older drivers because of inexperience and risky driving behaviors. This is not just a statistic, it's a call to action. Research clearly shows that formal driver's education can make a real difference. A large study out of University of Nebraska-Lincoln that followed more than 150,000 teen drivers found that those who completed driver's education were 75% less likely to receive a traffic ticket, 24% less likely to be involved in a fatal or injury crash, and 16% less likely to have any crash during their first year of driving compared to teens who did not take driver's ed. Why does this matter? Because driver's Because driving isn't just a rite of passage, it's a lifelong skill with real consequences. Driver's ed teaches not only rules of the road and vehicle operation, but also defensive driving techniques, hazard anticipation, and safe habits that last far beyond the classroom. These skills reduce risky behaviors such as distracted driving, speeding, and driving without seatbelts. Right now, not all public schools offer driver's education, and we don't have a lot of choices for it in our area. It really involves having to go to Syracuse or Binghamton for driver's ed if it's not offered through our school. And many that do so struggle. I mean, a lot of schools do struggle with funding and staffing challenges. Yet offering driver's ed through the school system would ensure that all students, regardless of this vital training, entire community. In addition to saving lives, because insurance experience they need, to be able to practice.
My daughter. Yeah.
All right, so for tonight on the docket is the budget presentation on the tax cap. So I'm going to walk you through the calculations for that tonight so you can see where that stands and how that's calculated, talk about a little bit of nuances with the tax cap that we hear, because usually we think of tax cap, we think 2%. But it's not, it's very rarely actually 2% increase on the previous levy. So I'm going to talk about those little nuances. I'll give a little bit of update on the revenue side of the budget, just briefly. Not focus on the expenses because we're still working on those as a district, where that's going to stand. I can share that driver's ed is currently in the budget right now for expenses. So, and then there's been some information about the fiscal stress monitoring that's out there. So I want to give some updates on that to the community as well. So tax cap, essentially what it is it's a multi-step formula that helps determine the maximum amount that a school district can levy with a simple majority approval. So that's 50% of the voters plus one. That's the simple majority. Within that formula, there are two different growth factors that allow you to increase the revenue from year to year. The first one is the tax-based growth factor, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And the other one is that 2% number that everyone's familiar with hearing. So the 2% number is either the lower of either 2% or the current consumer price index at the time. So right now, that's at 2.63%. So it's still above 2%, so we're stuck at that 2%. And there are some other things that we can add on to there based upon what law allows in terms of the formula. You're going to hear a lot of terminology, so the first one I want to mention is exclusions. So this is that piece that we're allowed to add funds based upon certain laws of the formula. I'll talk about those a little bit later on, but that's what exclusions mean. Those things that are excluded from the percent increases that we can add on. Ultimately, the tax levy limit is what we are going to be asking our community that's on our tax rolls to provide for us, and that's the amount that requires us the 50% plus 1. You're also going to hear me say the word pilot. What that means is payment in lieu of taxes. So we do have a handful of businesses in the area where they have a certain agreement with the IDA to pay a certain tax schedule. So usually it's a little less than what they would pay if they were on the tax rolls. So we do have some, it's still part of the local
The
revenue.
IDA means, for people who might not know?
The Industrial Development Agency
Right,
in the area.
effectively the same.
So they are on our local revenue, but they're not as part of the tax roll that we have in September. I want to talk about the tax-based growth factor. So this is the first thing that is applied, and what it essentially does is it accounts for any assessments that were added that were not previously taxed. So, for instance, in any particular year, you might have new businesses, new homes that are built, or new to the area. We might also have some pilots that are returning to the tax rolls. That allows us to essentially increase the base tax so that the tax rate is equal for all homes that are currently on the assessment. So, for example, I'll say a district has a total tax base of $1 trillion, and the tax rate is $12.50. That means the district receives $12,500,000 in taxes. But by the end of that year and the start of the next year, $1.7 million was added to that tax roll that wasn't taxed before. So what this growth factor allows you to do is, before you do any calculations, adjust what you had originally by some kind of a tax-based growth factor. It allows for a revised starting point, so that way every house is still paying the same tax rate from that starting point, keeping in mind that you get that additional $21,250 in this example. So that's the first step that happens in the tax cap formula. So already we're on our way up in the total percentage. There are some other factors that influence the tax levy, in particular the pilots, the payments in lieu of taxes. So when they increase or decrease, come on, come off. If we have new pilots, essentially that means that the taxpayers take on more of a share of the local taxes. If pilots expire, then those go back on the tax rolls and relieve the taxpayers. So that can create some ebbs and flows in terms of the increases. The exclusions piece, that might go up and down as well, depending on how that changes from year to year. So there might be some judgments and torts that the district has to pay. Also, the ERS, TRS contributions, if it goes up more than 2% from year to year, we can add that into the formula. Also, if there's any adjustments to the capital exclusions for capital projects, bus purchases, BOCES rent and capital, that can affect it. And that's one reason why we have capital projects on a regular basis, right? To keep that part of the formula steady from year to year so that we don't see those varies and fluctuations. So you might see some capital work happening right now at the Berry. You're going to see some capital work coming soon at the junior senior high school and at Randall. That's all part of this, keeping this tax levy consistent from year to year. So now I'm going to get to the calculation quickly for this formula. So as I mentioned, the purpose of this is to determine the total amount that a district can raise for simple majority approval. That includes everything levied from the community plus those pilot payments. So essentially what we do, and I'm going to run through the calculation, then I'm going to quickly go through all the numbers because you can look at those later if you want. So first thing is you account for those added assessments, the tax-based growth factor. Then, because they aren't part of the tax bases, but they are part of the local revenue, we add back in the pilot. That gives us the total revised amount that we're supposed to be getting from our local community. Since exclusions were extra, we take those away. It's at that point we add that 2% or the CPI. So that's the growth from year to year. Then we add in the new exclusions, because that does change slightly from year to year, and then remove the pilots because they're not going to be taxed in terms of the tax base. That's essentially what the tax cap formula is in its essence. So I'm going to go through the numbers, but just so you can kind of see a visual here, The pilots, for us, is not really something to be too concerned about because they're such a small amount of our local revenue. There are some districts out there that have millions of dollars of pilots, and so when those go off and on, they cause huge fluctuations in the tax increases or decreases each year. And then in yellow is the exclusions, the little part that we add on by law. As you can see, it's a little different from year to year, but the difference is negligible in terms of the effect on the tax rate, and I'll talk about that when we get there. If you want to see the formula, here it is. Just like this, it's not as complicated as the foundation aid formula, thankfully, but this is the formula we use for the tax cap. And the 2% is only one factor, that the first thing on the second row there. So, quickly walk through the formula. So last year's levy was $19,790,911. We don't have any reserve sets or reserve amounts, so we apply the tax-based gross factor, with this year is 0.76%. That brings us to $19,941,322. Then we take that, we add in the pilots, and then subtract off the exclusions. That gets us to an adjusted amount of $19,405,000. And it's at that point that we apply the 2%. So that's the only place the 2% applies. And since CPI is currently at 2.63%, we are stuck with the 2% this year. Then we subtract off the pilots. That gives us the levy limit before the exclusions get added in. So if you look at that number from year to year, it's about a 2.31% increase before we get to the exclusions piece. Take a moment to talk about the capital exclusions because there's a lot involved in that. The biggest part of that is the capital projects, the bus purchases, and the BOCES rent and capital. So these are all voted upon previously as separate propositions. So usually on the ballot in May, we have a bus proposition, we might have a capital project proposition. Those are all separate. What we do with those propositions is, if they're approved by the voters, that then becomes the local share. So after building aid is applied, the local share gets added as part of this tax cap formula. So we try and keep that consistent from year to year. So as you look at the capital projects, $4.7 million in debt service payments for principal interest we have in next year's budget, but we're going to get $3.79 million in building aid, which means the local share for that is about $937,000. So that's part of the capital exclusions, that local share. Same thing for bus purchases. Local share is 126. BOCES rent and capital is 53. If you compare that to where the exclusions were last year, you'll see there is an increase in the capital projects in the BOCES. The BOCES was anticipated with the recent approval of the BOCES capital project that was voted upon. And also, when we did the Barry project, we did indicate there would be a slight increase to the local share, and this is the 1 year we're going to experience that. But all said and done, going from $700,000 to $1.1 million, looking at the impact on the tax bill, it's about 50 cents on a $100,000 home. So it's very minimal impact on the taxpayer in the long run. So when you add that back into the levy limit before exclusions, that gives us our tax levy limit for this year, which is $20,709,868, which is a 4.64% over the current year tax levy. So that's a quick calculation on all those. You can look at those later. Any questions on that before we get to the next part?
Yeah, I got a quick question. So the city recently revised, updated its assessment of houses, right, for tax purposes. Did that increase the share that comes to us in any way?
It doesn't change the amount we levy from the community. What it does is it puts homes on their true value. So there's no adjustment based upon inflation factors. People know exactly what their true value is. In the long run, it stays in line with what they've been, because there's an adjustment each year to account for reassessments not being done.
Okay.
So when you look at this in the big picture, so this year is a 4.64% tax levy limit. What we have discussed as a board in the district as well is this is a year where we're experiencing some difficulties with our expense budget, so we're going to be requesting a 7.5% tax levy override. That does require a 60% supermajority approval by the voters in order to be successful. To put it in context, to kind of simplify a little bit, if you're looking at that 7.5% increase, if you have a $100,000 true assessed property, that's an additional $2.50 per month that we're requesting from the taxpayers. If you have a $200,000 property, it's an additional $5 per month that we're going to be asking from the taxpayers. Here's a chart that just shows the comparison of all those factors I was mentioning from year to year. And as you can see in that last column in purple, you can see the $565,000 increase above the tax levy limit that we're requesting for the 7.5 for this year. One thing I also want to do is take this as an opportunity to talk about some of the nuances of the formula and how it's not really benefiting us the way it's set up. As I mentioned, one of the factors of the formula is the 2% number, which is capped at 2% or CPI, whichever of those two is lowest. So in blue, you can see where the consumer price index has been in previous years. In red is what we are using in the formula, and that's, as you can see, is well below where it has been in years. So as you can imagine, costs on the expense side are going up at that 8% in 2024, but we're capped on what we can get in terms of revenue. So it was put into law to help safeguard property tax owners from large increases, but this is a problem that we're facing as a district in terms of that growing revenue and expense gap. If you look at the tax rate on true, again in red, should that CPI or 2% take the higher of the two, that's where our tax rates would have been compared to what they are in blue currently right now. As you can see, that separation really happens in 2020, right where that CPI is really above the 2% number. Overall, if we were to have the higher of those two numbers, at this point, what this chart shows is that we could have been levying $23.4 million in taxes, getting there slowly over time, right? Obviously, it's a large jump from where we are right now with the $21 million, but essentially we're missing out on $2.7 million based on. So I wanted to kind of illustrate this because sometimes this is maybe some good advocacy if we can get this formula changed a little bit or adjusted to the higher of those two. That might be a point of advocacy we have with the legislators. So we do have two growth factors. We have the tax-based growth factor, which is 0.76%, and we're allowed to increase by 2% this year because CPI is above that. Capital solutions do change from year to year. Our goal and target right now is to be about $900,000 to $1 million, somewhere in that range. It's going to have a little bit of increase and decrease from year to year. It's not going to be exactly the same from year to year, but this year that increase is less than $1 for a $100,000 home. Any questions on tax cap before we get to some revenue and comptroller? Okay, so no updates really to the state aid projections. The February database is out, but that doesn't change what the governor's projections are at the moment. Right now, in the executive budget, it's about $33.8 million in state aid. Those are based upon numbers that we put in for costs this year, so those expense-based aids like BOCES aid, high costs, transportation and building. We are right now budgeting a little less than that because we might not spend that full amount in this current school year. So as we get closer and closer to April, I'll be adjusting these state aid numbers accordingly. But we're looking at right now for foundation aid that 1% due minimum. I was on a webinar today where what they were saying is that about 73% of the districts across the state are seeing that 1% hold harmless this year. So it's a staggering
that
number.
what? Sorry.
73% of the districts across New York State are having that 1% hold harmless this year. So their formula says less than 1%. I want to show this chart too because we're limited in our revenues that are coming in the door. So everything you see in green up above, that's money coming into the door to help offset our costs. Anything in yellow in the last three rows there, in the upper part, that's using our district savings. As you can see, as we progress from 21-22 up to this current year, we've had to dip more and more into our savings because that gap of what's actually coming in state aid, tax levy, other revenues, miscellaneous revenues, is not keeping up with our expenses. So we've had to dip into our savings. And as you can see in the yellow and the darker red, that's showing a higher and higher usage. We had those independent reviews this year, and we're doing a lot of dig deeping into what our projected fund balance is going to be, as well as where our reserve balances are. We are going to be looking at it closely, but we are at a point now where we're going to have to reduce our reliance on those two pieces. So as we go through these last few months, we're going to refine that a little bit closer, but right now, our revenue in the door looks like it's about $56.7 million. That's including the 7.5% tax levy override if it's approved. And our current expenses, as about end of January, is about $62.5 million. So that's still about a $5.7 million gap. That's before we talk about reducing expenses. Any questions about revenue before we get to the comptroller's report?
So our budget gap is $5,798.
Correct, at this point, before we apply any kind of
Just
reductions.
To sum up, we've been relying on reserves for the past few years to keep afloat, and now we don't have reserves anymore.
Correct, yes.
Right.
Yep. So we have about $1.6 million savings usage in 23-24, about $2.2 million in 24-25, $4.4 million in this current year, so that's where the $5.7 million is just growing and growing as we go from year to year.
Chris, can you go back just a couple, I have a question on the foundation aid. It's just a misunderstanding on my end. Like, when I hear like there could be a 1%, there should be a 1% increase on foundation aid. If that's the case, then why is it that, or is the increase there? It's just we didn't have to adjust our budget. Is that how I'm supposed to be reading this? 'Cause I see
So
the
the 25-26, the green column is what we're getting this year in aid.
right,
The blue column is what the governor is proposing.
right,
So as you can see, the $23.7 million goes up by 237, that's the 1%.
yep,
Our formula is actually for foundation aid saying we're supposed to be getting less than $23.7 million. So regardless, we'd be sticking on that number, but the governor is proposing at least a 1% increase. And then from that governor's run, I have to then make some decisions about, okay, where do we reasonably think these numbers are going to come in? Because these are based upon not actual expenditures at this point because we haven't finished this year. So then for the expense-based age, like BOCES, high cost, all those, I decrease it right now with the hopes that we can maybe have better numbers and maybe we don't have to decrease it as much. So that purple column is what's currently in the budget for revenues for next year.
right. So the $0 budget adjustments for foundation aid, that's just saying that
We
you
know.
already planned on that.
Correct,
Got it.
correct.
Thank you.
So that's the governor's executive budget, right? Now, as you know, in Albany, it's, everybody's up there with their hand out through the April 1st deadline when the budget's supposed to be released with the Assembly and the Senate. So is there any chance that the Assembly or the Senate might increase that aid?
There's always a chance that that could happen.
Have you heard anything to that extent?
Not that I've heard, no. It's still in talks and discussions, but it's a possibility, especially if they see the number of 73% of districts are at 1%. And if there's advocacy saying that our expenses are growing at a faster rate than what revenues can sustain, that might put some leverage on the Senate and the House to increase it to 2% or 3%.
Saturday through next Tuesday.
Okay, I'll be there the week after, and I'll mention it too. But I wonder if you and I could also go, or should also go and talk with Senator Leo Webb and Anna Kellis to talk about not the entire Assembly, but with their own personal discernments of allocations that they might be able to help us out.
Chris and I have been doing quite a bit of work in that direction, so we talked to Anna Kellis's office right the week before break, or the week before break, I think. So we're trying, same thing, but we can get in the door anytime.
Okay.
This is a good story to tell, and we can tell it in some basic and understandable ways, but they know the conversation.
All right, well, I could set up a meeting with both Anna and Leah for us three to meet with
I'll see
them.
both of them next week too, but it would be good to be.
And I'll
their
see them,
offices here.
yeah,
Both their offices here.
okay.
Thank you for that.
All right, I want to move on to the Comptroller's Fiscal Stress Monitoring Report. So right now, as of this current moment, the report out there for the Comptroller says that we're not in fiscal stress. And those reports are always 1 year behind. And you can see here in green indicates no designation for fiscal stress, yellow was susceptible fiscal stress, and red was moderate fiscal stress. So thankfully, we've never been significant fiscal stress like some districts have been. But as you can see, we've been kind of green for the last 5 years, including the 24-25 school year, which the current report says. Now, we are in a situation where we're saying that we're in a tough budget year, right? We're saying we have these tough budget scenarios. how does that match with what the comptroller is saying in terms of our fiscal stress? The comptroller does provide a tool that helps districts to determine, knowing that it's a year behind, to determine where the district should anticipate to be landing at the end of the current fiscal year. So using that tool, and I'll come back to that slide in a second, we can look at various figures in terms of where we think our anticipated end of year fund balance is going to be. Where do we anticipate our deficits to be? Where do we anticipate X, Y, Z, et cetera? With that in mind, I plugged in those numbers, and that does put us at susceptible fiscal risk at the end of this school year. So we are anticipating that at this time next year, the comptroller report will come out and say we are in susceptible fiscal stress. Right now, it doesn't look like it because it says we're not designated as anything, but next year, we do anticipate that. Likewise, if the trend continues, we might be in moderate fiscal stress in the 26-27 school year. So, I want to show this graph, and I did put the purple line there just because the two farmost bars are currently assumptions. We don't really know where those are going to be, but they will, in my assumptions right now, in my anticipation, is that they will be close to those numbers in the future, based upon where we're anticipating this year to be. We are anticipating a deficit this year because we're using a lot of savings and fund balance to offset the budget. So that is something we know for sure.
That
One
means
thing
it's going to cost us more money for bands and to borrow
Yes.
money
The
effectively?
more fund balance we apply, the less cash we have to pay our July, August, September before taxes come in, so we have to apply for a higher RAN amount, which does impact these as well. That's one of the factors in the fiscal stress. In purple, just to kind of show you another factor, there's a environmental stress factor that takes into account turnover rate, class sizes, taxpayer approval of the budget, a bunch of different environmental factors. As you can see, that's been increasing over the years, and likely it's probably increased because in 2023 we had a failed budget that first time. Same thing in 2025, so that's why that's maybe a little high in those years. But in that regard, we've been not designated yet, but that's been fairly high. Another reason why we might be in the green in these last 5 years is because we did receive some COVID federal funding to help us fund reserves and get some fund balance in place in 2021, 2022. So that probably took us off of the monitoring for a little while, but now that those funds have gone away, it makes sense that we're starting to see those realities kick back in a little bit. Okay. So, question you'd be asking, how can we avoid fiscal stress? There might be some things unavoidable this particular year because we have our budget for revenues and expenses, so we are anticipating a deficit. We're anticipating a lower than usual fund balance. This year we start off with 3.6%. We might start off next year with 2%, where that lies. Depends on what we appropriate. So the first thing is to limit the amount of appropriated fund balance. And this is a tough decision to make because as a district we recognize we're susceptible to fiscal stress potentially. But as we close the budget gap, we have to apply some savings to help close that budget gap. So ideally, when you're appropriating funds, you should be appropriating anything that's above that 4% number that's allowed by property tax law to carry over into the next year's unassigned fund balance. Because above that 4%, you either have to fund reserves or use it to apply to next year's budget. If you go below that 4%, that's when you start getting into issues where you have to issue higher RANs for cash flow, et cetera. Try and avoid operating deficits. So the way you do that is bring your expense budget as close as you can to the revenue that's coming into the district. That's the state aid, the taxes, and the miscellaneous revenues. And our reserves are there to help us in rainy days and situations. Use them only when necessary. Okay? The more you use reserves, that does decrease your fund balance. The hopes are that you can use reserves and fund them back at the same rate from year to year to keep it consistent. But we are going down in our fund balance from year to year, and we're anticipating that to go down fairly significantly this year. So those are factors that we can consider looking into the next few years as we close out this budget. We have some say into those factors. Some of those factors are going to be things we're going to have to work towards. Okay, so the next steps for the budget, we're going to look at the expense budget, the non-staffing expenses. We're looking at that deeply to make sure we are reducing where possible, especially those non-staffing, so that we can have those reduced to what they need to be before we consider looking at staffing. Now, we do have a deadline for retirement incentives that is approaching soon. Once those come in, we know who's retiring. we're going to then use that information to help inform our staffing decisions. Our hopes are to have that by end of March, because the board's going to ultimately be adopting the budget in April, April 20th. And then on the revenue side, still some final calculations on the miscellaneous revenue, looking at those end-of-year fund balance projections, as well as reviewing options for reserve usage for next year. And the next presentation is going to be the draft expense and revenue budgets. I'll break it down a little more succinctly by category. I'll have a proposal for closing that remaining budget gap. And then on April 20th, 2 meetings from now, that's when the board not only adopts the, approves the BOCES admin, rent, and capital budget, but also adopts the budget to get ready for the budget hearing in May for the vote on May 19th. We are also in preliminary talks right now. I just worked with Bob to talk about how we're going to get more input from the community. We are looking at potentially having a town hall type meeting on April 13th. We're still working out the details, so look for more information to come soon. We'll spread the word as best as we can, but it's a Monday evening right before the committee nights the next day. But we're going to look to have those opportunities in the coming months as well.
Who's planning to lead that, just out of curiosity?
Kristen. Yeah.
April what? April.
April 13th is what we're looking at right now. Still not definitive yet, but that's what we're planning on right now. Any questions?
No, thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
There's a lot to it.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob Edwards will now share some updates with us. Thank you, Chris, for that report.
I'll shift gears just at the very beginning and get off of the budget topic, because there it was and there it happened. You all know our Lego League team, 2 of our Lego League teams, traveled to Buffalo again. Now it's seemingly an annual annual competition regionally that we win to get to go to the Greater Finger Lakes competition. So this is one of our Randall Lego League teams, the one that qualified and made it to Buffalo. So as Julie can attest, it was another epic trip with many highlights. The bus ride, that's a highlight. Packing for an overnight trip, that's a highlight. Arrival at the hotel, Julie and I were there for the arrival, that's a big highlight. The pool is an incredible highlight in a hotel, and when you see 24 Purple Tigers come and invade that pool, it is something to see. Lights out was a highlight, maybe a low light, but it was good. Breakfast at the hotel we had together, packing for the bus, practice runs, the innovation presentation once we got to the competition. 3 rounds of scoring and an award ceremony, and then back on the bus, and eventually back here to Cortland after the next day. Epic journey for sure, and our kids were awesome. Our 2 teams, just incredible. For me, a number of huge public shout-outs. The first of those goes to Mike Serenita, who's our bus driver, who took us on the trip this year. And as it seems like an annual tradition, too, we travel to this event in a blizzard most often. We did last year on both trips out and back. And this year, it was not much better. The road conditions were pretty rough. Mike was awesome as a driver, and then awesome as a sort of supporter at the event. He was very involved and and got to see how it all worked. So it was very cool to have him along for that. Equally major shout out to Sean and Aaron and John for their coaching, to Julie for really making it all happen. Once we qualify locally, then there's a lot that goes into planning an event like that. And so her unwavering support for the students is just really impressive to see. And then all of the staff that make it happen and allow and encourage our students to participate. I think, First Lego League is making some adjustments and changing some things, but this is really the path for some of our students to create that path in life. And the opportunities help form real habits of mind, habits of teamwork,
habits of presentation, habits of, working on something and tweaking it and making the robot better in, 20 minutes in between when you go for your first round and when you have to go fix your robot and make it go better for the second and third rounds. So that is just a celebration to be had, and a great opportunity for our kids. So I'm appreciative to all who help us get there. A couple things. So just to reiterate, and Chris and I had we were planning a different order tonight, but I appreciate that he went. But just to articulate, so he and I have been talking a lot about, budget or an expense and revenue, and it really is not a difficult conversation at that level, right? That 30,000-foot view of knowing how a school budget works. The complexities are deep down in the weeds where Chris really works. But when we look at any year's budget, we just know what are our anticipated expenses, and these for 24, 25, and 25, 26, we know, but what are your expenses? What are your revenues going to be? And then, because those numbers don't match, you have to apply some savings. So just like a home budget, if it came to a year where you knew your expenses were going to be more than your revenue, you then were going to have to look for your other revenue stream or your savings pot, and you have to pull it from that to take it. The challenge for schools, just like the challenge for any bank account, is as you keep pulling from that savings, that thing dwindles more and more, and sooner or later, you're insolvent, right? You can't pull any more from it. So there's the big challenge when you're pulling big numbers like we are, or have been over the last couple of years. I think Chris's chart there on the fiscal stress is really, when you look at that thing, it is very interesting thing visually to look at, because you notice all of that fiscal stress was happening, and the district was making some changes when that first set of fiscal stress was happening, all those red and orange bars that you see. And that was happening, and you remember the district, we went through some consolidation. The district made some other difficult choices at those times. And then there's a bunch of green bars, and those are the COVID bars. Those are there. It's just our time is now beyond that time. But that fiscal stress has been the consistent factor. The COVID part is an anomaly, right? So that just jumps out when I look at that chart. But as we look at those numbers, expenses to be anticipated next year at $62 million, and revenue to be coming in at $56 million. Chris and I have been in a lot of financial meetings recently, in and out of the district. OCM BOCES hosted Rick Timms. All of the business officials and superintendents from the area were there. Rick Timms is a very well-respected mind in school budgeting and school finance. And he made a statement there that just really caught me, and that statement was, I'll bet your local share will not even match your salary and benefits adjustments. And I bet it won't even match one of those factors. And in our case, it doesn't. So that total levy revenue that you get off of any percentages and what you plan to get, it's not matching the expense side of the house. So the challenge really, and this is a challenge that's here locally right now, but it's also around the area, right? You've already heard stories of other districts that are struggling, and it will keep coming in the years to come. So this is a longer term set of adjustments that are going to need to be made, and some difficult things to be talked through. So a couple of messages that we heard last time, and I'll ask Chris to hand out a few things. We heard in our budget workshop, we heard one thing in the budget workshop, which was about simplifying the message in some ways. Thanks. And so these are both in just draft form, but as we're thinking about the next couple of months before we get to the budget vote, just a variety of ways to visually and with fewer words tell some of the story, right? So the first thing that you're looking at is, how will the vote impact tax on my property? And Chris showed that in another way, but essentially on a $100,000 house, if we're talking about a 7.5% tax levy adjustment, that is working out to be $2, approximately $2.75 per month on your taxes. So Brendan made a statement in our budget workshop that really caught me and was super interesting. And when we talked about the messaging, the concept that I heard was sometimes when you talk about a $100,000 property and you talk about 7.5% change on that property, somebody thinks, oh my God, my taxes are going to be $7,500. Or doing bad math like me, you might just say, oh, I don't know, it's $750. Both of those numbers are big numbers, right? So both of those numbers become confusing because 7.5% on a tax levy does not mean $7,500 on your $100,000 house. It doesn't mean $750 on your $100,000 house. It means approximately, I think the number that we had was, $30 or so a year. So it's a $2.75 adjustment. I've also created sort of the same concept because we could make this as a $200,000 house. But same thing, if you think of a $200,000 house, what this will be if we approve a 7.5% tax levy override, that gets approved by our voters, basically is $5.25 per month on a $200,000 house. So we don't want to, deflate what that is, right? We know taxes are a burden that we have, but it's not $7,500. It's not $15,000 on those assessments. So any ways that we can get to sort of make that clear, we're going to keep talking that language and try to share some visuals. So this is really just a draft, but if you do have any thoughts on it, feel free to email Chris and I on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, all those numbers and all those letters you're going through, that's what people are confused about, what it actually means to them and what that will mean. This is very clear, much better. Thank you.
So the next page, again, is just a different informational piece, but it sort of then talks through really what a ballot might look like. Again, draft form, right? Because I don't have Proposition 1 on the school budget number quite correct. And the other parts, we're just drafting it. But it looks like on our vote this May, we'll have, the school budget proposition, that's always Proposition 1. We'll have a transportation proposition, which is always our 2, capital reserve proposition, a transportation capital reserve proposition, and then the Cortland Free Library, which has to be on our, because we're a city school district. So it would have that information, right, and we'll get that information more clear. It then talks about what is the tax increase. If we're going at a 7.5%, we put it there. The verbiage there is then next to it. You can see that. This would mean a 2.7, $2.75 shift in your payment per month. For a $200,000 house, basically an annual increase of $63. Tax neutral means it wouldn't impact the taxes, but this is draft. So not all of those are tax neutral. That's just how we built it so far. But we're looking for ways to, a variety of ways to provide some simplified messaging, particularly around the tax levy part, right? This is the revenue side of our house.
Are you saying that these will be mailed, something similar to this will be mailed home?
Yeah.
Are we also going to post it near the voting in case you didn't quite read the one at home and you're like, oh yeah, what was that again?
I think once we get our final copies,
Right.
I think we could, to your point, posterize some of these.
Sometimes I get there and it's like, oh yeah.
Move these into the community, get these parent square, obviously, mailings, obviously, all of those.
It's just, pushing on social media as well.
Yeah.
Counter Facebook.
Yep,
That's what
absolutely.
well, but
Yep.
it'll be big.
As soon as we get them really right,
Yeah.
that might not happen till our March meeting, but as soon as we get them, then we're gonna use something like this. And any other thoughts and ideas we have to simplify the message and keep it easy to understand.
This is incredibly important information to get out, that for a $100,000 property, it would amount to $2.75 per
month.
per month. And for a $200,000 property, it would amount to $5 per month for the 7.5 increase, which sounds like it would be a lot more. And that is key because we're trying to protect jobs, we're trying to protect You know, we're trying to protect programs like driver's ed and situations which we heard about during the open mic period, so.
For what it's worth, my coffee that's in here would cost $5.90. So if I had a $200,000 house, this was more expensive than the increase per home.
It's also important to note too, just at this point, we don't know exactly where tax rates are gonna be, so I had the $2.50 number, Bob has the $2.75 number, it's roughly gonna be around that area, right, in terms of the impacts, in terms of what we've seen historically. So, at this point, we can't definitively say what that impact's gonna be, but we know it's gonna be around that $2.50, $2.75 mark.
I did put that little squiggly mark, which I think means approximately. And I have that in, maybe on the one behind.
Still, we're
Yeah,
not-
I have that
we're
little
not
squiggly
talking
mark
about-
just
we're
to
not-
indicate.
We're not talking about thousands of dollars of
No,
increases in
not
your
double
taxes
digits.
per year.
Nope, that was, that.
This is for our
when-
children.
When you asked that question in the budget workshop or made that would, hit me like a brick, like somebody might think,
Oh,
you know,
totally.
7.5%
Everyone's thinking that.
on
The
100,000 is too
scenario
much,
you
yeah.
didn't mention was you hear 7.5 and you start doing math in your head of what would 7.5% of my house value be, and that added to my taxes. Like, the math goes every.
Yep.
Right, or people look at their total tax levy, which includes the city taxes or whatever municipality tax they're paying, and they might presume that on top of that, they'll be paying this additional percentage, and it's just a school portion.
Yeah, well, so we're gonna keep working on our messaging on this one. If you do have any feedback on those drafts, please get that to me as we keep going. So a couple of things as we're talking about evolving, and this is a budgetary conversation, but as we are, it is necessary for us to do some cost savings measures. Those will be pretty significant as we go through this spring and into next year. But what doesn't change and what remains constant for us are our mission and vision. So we'll be mindful of that, and as we're going through our work is not to change these things. We understand our fundamental purpose, to ensure high levels of learning for every student. And our question just becomes, whether it's this year or next year, whether we're in a spaceship or whether we're out in the forest, our question is, how do we do that? So that's the question. We know our mission, we know our vision. The question is, how do we do that? And every year it looks different. And that's the reality of education in general. Every year it looks different. But we just change with those conditions and we evolve to those things. So that'll be our work. And this will be a tough spring to, redesign some things, but that's the work ahead of us. So the other things that we'll really be doing is continuing to evaluate our structure and our program, our opportunities, and the arrangement of the district. We've talked about a number of things. This is not going to be a one-year fix. This is a multi-year plan that's going to have to be executed and thoughtfully and intentionally done. And an example of that is possible future restructuring in terms of the district composition of how buildings work. We had quite a considerable dialogue around potentially moving 6th grade up to the junior, senior high school this year. But we've also been quite intentional with knowing that this year is going to have some challenges in this spring, and it might not be the right time to make a transition like that. So it buys us some time to really think through that plan and then have, a lot of communication out in our community about something like that if it were to come. But we're not planning that right now. So there is part of, and you all know, I've begun communicating with staff around here are the things we know at this point, so that we can take those out of people's mind and they don't have to keep talking about them. One thing we know is that when we return to Barry from Parker, we're going to return to Barry from Parker. That's our movement of staffing this summer and end of summer. It's that movement. It's not any other grade level shifting. Not to say that grade level shifting might not come in the future and might not be the best arrangement for us, but we've already taken that off the plate. But those are things as we continue to evaluate our system and think through all of our program. And we have to, we're beginning to think through that, not as a $60 million program, but as a $58 million program. Because our revenues can't continue to support a $60 million expense. A couple of just reminders and just notifications. If you haven't seen it on Facebook yet, we will make sure we get invitations and other things out and reminders. But we do have Guys and Dolls coming in March, 19th and 20th and 21st. And please think about attending. We also have some concerts, and I'll talk to you about those. Oh yeah, I have that in there too. For those of you who don't know, so our winter seasons are nearing and almost all at their end. I had the opportunity to be up at JD for our final girls basketball game of the season, and our girls and boys teams both made it to sectionals, which was exciting to see, and teams that continue to have success and show success in that way. So this was just a picture that we had out on Facebook right before the beginning of that game, and we're super proud of our teams and so it's just right down the street. And that is a opportunity that will be sure to bring a smile to your face. Along with that, other smiles to your face and pleasantries to your ears would be our spring concerts. So if you haven't seen that on Facebook or on social media in any way yet, please check that out and come to a show, if you will. So I just wanted to, before I say my thank yous, board member thanks, Chris. So a couple things we did at the budget workshop and afterward just have a question about grants. So I shared with all of you the FS10s. So you got a chance to see all of the FS10s, and I know maybe we had some questions about those. And then there was also a question about the ST3. So you know, this is a public website, public document, that ST3, which is a big financial document. So the instructions are there on how to get the ST3, should you want that. And then some other informational pages around the ST3. It's the New York State website, state ed website. And also then Chris pulled the ST3 Envision report, so you have that too. So you have all that information. And I think that's it on my end. I know there were a bunch of questions. We could either maybe do those at the end in discussion items.
Excuse me?
We'll go through all the I know we had a lot of board questions. We'll go through those at the end.
Parent Square says Unified Bowling.
We did. Nice. Beat
Who
Homer.
won?
6:30.
Cortland beat Homer.
Cortland beat
I'll say
Homer.
it that way.
How about that?
Was it the morning announcements?
Very nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, continuing on. Be it resolved upon the recommendations of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education accepts the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Janet makes a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you, Gavin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the personnel action as presented. Do we have a motion? Shirley. Second?
Second.
Joe. Any discussion?
Someone who had Mr. Gatto for AP US History. I'm glad to see him back in the district. One of my all-time favorites. And I saw him over the weekend, so I'm happy to hear that he is back in.
There you go. Thank you, Gavin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education accepts the revised SRO agreement as presented. We have a motion.
Motion?
Janet, any second? Sherilyn? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I just have a quick question. Apologize. Backing up for 1 second. So will this be staggered, Bob? So right now, there's an SRO part-time?
So Chris met with the chief and the two SROs,
Right.
And so they'll work on the schedule.
Okay, terrific, thank
So
you.
So, and our goal is to have as much coverage as we can,
That's what I'm understanding.
beginning and end of the day,
Less
most
overlap.
important. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you very much. We already voted. There was no opposed, right?
I'm opposed.
Okay, sorry. One opposed, 5 in favor. Any abstentions? There'll be no. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the request for an extended overnight field trip to Providence, Rhode Island for the All-Eastern Corps Honors Festival as presented. Motion?
Motion.
Lori makes a motion. Any second?
Second.
Joe, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the 2026-2027 100K Capital Outlay Project Seeker Resolution as presented. We have a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Janet. Second? Gavin? Any discussion?
Just to let the public know, this is replacing exterior doors.
Thank you, Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the bus bond resolution as presented. Motion? Thank you, Sherlin. Second?
Second.
Janet? Any discussion?
And again, just to let the public know, it's 4 75-passenger diesel buses and 1 student van.
Does this have to be roll call?
Yes.
It does, it does. So when I call your name, you're going to please state your vote as yes or no. Janet Griffin?
Yes.
Brett Barnes isn't here. Joe McMahon?
Yes.
Lori McGivern?
Yes, and it's a 5-year warranty. I forgot that.
Thank you. Sherlin?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carried. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the capital reserve resolution as presented. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Janet and Joe. Any discussion?
And again, it's just to pay for building construction and reconstruction.
Thank you for that, Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the Transportation Capital Reserve Resolution as presented. Motion? Sorry, okay. A second?
Second.
Joe? Any discussion?
It's just vehicle and reconstruction of buildings.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education hereby approves the notice of annual meeting defining the budget public hearing date, polling locations, voter registration day, student transportation vehicles proposition, 2026 Capital Reserve Fund proposition, 2026 Transportation Capital Reserve Fund proposition, and Cortland Free Library Tax proposition as presented. Do we have a motion? It's a mouthful.
That was big.
Janet makes a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gavin. All in favor? Or any discussion? My apologies.
Yeah, the two election sites, one at 8 Valley View Drive, the junior senior high school, and one at 1176 Church Street, the Virgil Town Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And carries. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the appointments of the Board of Registration and Election Inspectors for the budget vote and school board elections on May 19th, 2026, as presented. Thank you, Sherilyn. We have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Janet. Any discussion?
That's 2 are appointed for registration day on May 5th, and 12 are appointed for election day on May 19th.
Thank you. Lori, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the 2026-2027 student-faculty calendar as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Janet, do we have a second?
Second.
Joe, I heard Joe first. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Any abstentions? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Mr. Robert Edwards, Superintendent of Schools, that the Cortland Enlarged City School District Board of Education approves the field placement agreement for Simmons University as presented. You have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Lori. A second? Sherilyn? Any discussion?
And this is student teaching placement.
Thank you, Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries. Okay, moving on. Do any members of the cabinet have any information they would like to share tonight?
Even though it's February and we're just over halfway through the year, we're already starting to think about next year and planning for next year. So our annual reviews for our secondary students are underway, and even for our youngest students, we have kindergarten screenings for our CPSE students coming up. So even though it's February, we're planning right along. We have been able to partner with Midstate. We offered specially designed instruction, or SDI training, for our special education teachers. We also have a parent session coming up this week. And then you'll see the quarterly data report for special ed in the board docs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right, I can go next, or do you want to go, Joe? Okay. So in terms of ours, I just want to go over for curriculum and instruction, the conferences. So we have a conference report in the, I'm not sure where it is. It's somewhere in board docs. It's a overview of who's heading to different conferences. And I just want to clarify, because I want to make sure that I understand. We only wanted to know, like, the report for people that were going out of town, right? So for folks who are just going up to BOCES for a conference, do we want a reflection from them too, or was it just the out-of-town folks?
I can only speak for myself. I was just interested in knowing who's going where out of town, what the purpose of it is, and what value they got out of it. Not the,
To just like OCM BOCES?
No,
Okay,
no.
yep, so, on this one, on the sheet that was shared, the only one that's gonna be out of town, there's 2 of them. So one of them is Bob's, and I'm sure that he's gonna be sharing, it's the winter, lobby day. So he's gonna be in Albany. He can share about that when he returns. And then the other one is in March. It's our Director of Technology, March 24th. This one is the annual statewide conference. So it's for, data protection and security. And so just like last time she went to one, she'll give us kind of an overview of what she gained from that. So that one is coming up on March 24th. But in terms of the others, you'll see there's actually a lot that are virtual, which is nice because then folks don't have to travel anywhere. And then, and the other one, my apologies, that this does go to April. So Monday, April 13th, if you look on that one, we have two of our so we have a junior high teacher, Anna Higgins, and a senior high teacher, Leanne Bear, who are going to a link crew training. So we are having a paused up link crew that we're gonna be trying to kind of reconvene. So we have been away from link crew for a period of time. And so now we're trying to get a link crew back in action. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, link crew is when students are, making the shift from 8th grade to 9th grades, from junior high to senior high. And so Leanne and Anna are very passionate about it and are excited, and we were able to fund this through this training and this conference through our title funding. So that's been exciting for us to be able to fit that through.
And it's Title IV, right?
Yes, ma'am.
There you go. Professional development, would that be Title II?
You know what, I'd have to
Title
look.
II.
Title II, I think.
Yeah, Title II.
So to clarify, Lori, for conferences, you're looking for reports for when the district spends money for travel
Right.
and room and board to
Right.
make sure, to see
So
what
we're
somebody.
doing our fiduciary responsibility.
Understood. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Joe, anything? No? Chris, anything?
Just a quick couple of updates. I did go with the NASA Hunch team to Westchester, where we had some NASA engineers kind of looking at prototypes that they're trying to look for the future, for future moon missions to help with that. So Platt was there for that. He did a great job presenting with some NASA engineers, so glad to be part of that trip. And Justin was there as well, to help film for the weekly class. And also, we wrapped up our fiscal strategic planning process with our stakeholder group. We have a couple here tonight who will participate in that process. Some of you were able to observe that process. We had a lot of great work looking at some two key areas. One is how to strategically reduce expenses. One is what are the central programs we want to maintain for our students, as well as how to strategically grow our revenues as well. So we're taking that information. We presented a draft fiscal plan, got some feedback on that plan at the February 12th meeting, and we're going to take that information, take the information from the independent reviews, and use those to help consolidate our final budget process this year. And then as we look to the future, one of the suggestions that we had from that is to continue that process on an annual basis. So as we go into next year and the year after that, we look to continue in that process, having some students, staff, community members, and parents involved in that process. That's all I got for updates.
Thank you. Yeah, so I appreciate Julie giving a heads up. So as I had mentioned, you all know that I'm headed to Lobby Day with the New York State Superintendent's Conference. That's an annual process in Albany, in addition to a couple of other lobbying days, but this is like the big opportunity where we'll be in Albany. We'll be having, audience with some of our assembly members and senators. Typically, Shelley Mayer and Joe Griffo are two of the bigger on the education side and the education committee. I then like to head to our local reps and see Dr. Kellis and Leah Webb, as well as some others that we get to lean in on. It is the opportunity for school districts to continue their advocacy for, changes in things, changes in a foundation aid formula, changes in how some of the unfunded mandates happen to school districts. So it's our opportunity for that. I'll be glad to report out afterward. I shared with you all, FS10s were requested for all of the grants, so you got an opportunity to see that. I hope that was really informative. I think that came from a place that there's often, I think, a narrative, a very false narrative, that we spend all sorts of money out of our general fund for consultants and other type titles, and that's just not accurate. When you had a chance to look at those FS10s, you had a real good dig into each category, what they look like. They're really specifically categorical. You would notice that we are in receipt of $3 million in federal grants, right? So those are the grants that comes in, and you saw the ones that were there. The title grants, that's Title II, 1, 2, and 4. The IDEA grants, those are specifically special education grants. Early college high school, a school improvement grant and the UPK grant. In total, we're recipients of $3 million. You see, and I hope, because I was applauding Julie, Joe, Kristen, and Chris, you'll note that we put a lot of staff salary and benefits into those grants, right? The majority is spent that way. $1.9 million of the spend is on salary and benefits for staffing. This was a real concern last year when we were going through the budget process, and there were a lot of things federally that were happening, and I think there was a lot of concerns that Title I was going to be slashed and 2 and 4 were going to go away. Thankfully, that didn't happen, but we have to continue to be ever mindful of that possibility. Again, you can think of, well, you saw the list of staff in those that are written into those grants. If those grants went away and you think of that number, I mean, I think there's 20 or 30 staff that are written into those grants, right? It wouldn't be those staff who go away, because some of those staff are senior staff as well, but those staff would be then displaced into positions and into the general fund where other staff would have to go away. So it's another anxiety of, superintendents and business officials around that. But I think, I applaud our leadership team for really being wise and mindful in the way that they do that. I think the false narrative that rolls around is that we spend all this money in consultants and coaches and other things, and you'll see the number there. If you did the math, I did some really simple math, but it's essentially 3% of that spend is spent in that way, right, in some professional development for staff. So it's a real small amount of that, of those grants that are applied that way. And there's only specific ones that get applied to that, and they're mostly the smaller grants anyway. So I hope that was helpful for everybody, and other than that, we're just, working through the next month in our school part and cheering on our staff as they continue to do great things with kids. Julie and I have our, weekly, but we rotate with our meetings with principals, and those are really data-driven meetings. And we were at Barry today in particular, and there were some celebrations of a couple of our teacher teams there that were just delightful to hear and wonderful. We have great staff, so that's it on my end, and I appreciate that. I do think, Alicia, we had one discussion item that we're thinking about trying to form a budget workshop and get a date together for a budget workshop. So I don't know, Chris, did you think of a way to do that, or should we send out a doodle poll? Because I know the board was interested in getting to the table to talk about.
Could
some
we
budget.
meet next Monday or next Tuesday?
I'm going to be in Albany Monday and Tuesday.
Both days?
Yeah. But, what's that? Well, do you want to go after the committee meetings, just like we did last time?
On the Tuesday.
Yeah, we went on the 10th. That'd be March 10th, right after the committee.
I'll be in
meetings.
Albany talking to
On the 10th?
Senator Webb that entire week,
Yeah,
and
you'll be-
Anna Kellis, and
Yep.
advocating for a lot of things that entire week. What about, will you be back by Wednesday, the
Yep.
4th?
Yes, I will.
What about Wednesday, March 4th?
What's the date?
March 4th?
That's fine with me.
March
Okay.
4th?
Yeah.
Okay, let's land on it. What,
As early as
4:35?
possible.
Early? 4:30?
I could do, yeah. How early could everybody do here? You, Kevin, you're working, right?
5?
Yeah, 5 would be better than
5.
4:30.
Let's
but
set it at 5.
5 is
5
fine.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yep. March 4th, 5 o'clock.
Alicia, will you send out an invitation, or should we just put it on?
Yeah, I'll send it.
Oh, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you,
Appreciate that.
Alicia. Appreciate it. That's it for me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bob. Do any board members have any information to share tonight?
I just want to make a shout out to all the high school students who've done their athletics or whatever they've done in the last quarter. So just to recognize the fact that they've done great jobs. They've done great jobs. Thank you.
Our Lego team,
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
basketball. Anything else? I just want to share that I'm very concerned about this $5 million deficit. I appreciate the work that Chris has been doing on the budget, and Bob, and I think everyone on the board here, and I'm sure all the cabinet, and I hope that you work together with with the union to help get the word out, to try and push for this tax cap override to get us to that 7.5% that will mitigate some of the pain that we're facing. And while our teachers and our administrators and everybody continues to do a terrific job here. So, thank you. Aiden and Cy, do either of you have any information you'd like to share tonight? Oh, Cy. Cy, any information you'd like to share tonight?
No, we don't really have anything to report on today, other than we're just still actively working on our alternative enrollment survey.
Okay, thank you. We look forward to that. You guys always do such a thorough job. We appreciate it. Alicia, are there any requests to address the board?
Yes, I have two. The first one is Donald Chu regarding budget gap. It's only less than 10%. Don't forget all other teachers.
Very short tonight. I hope the district can avoid layoffs. I was just looking at the attrition rate or the turnover rate for recent years, and it's been about 20% or more. And looking at, say 180 teachers, 20% of that, I hope that's more than enough to cover, that part of the budget that needs to be cut. The actual budget, we're $5 million, which is a lot, but it's out of 60, so it's less than 10% actually. So it's, percentage-wise, it's not too big. So yeah, I'm hoping, and I'm sure Chris and Bob are too, that when the numbers come in March, it'll be enough that we don't have to force anybody, out of a job. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. I couldn't agree more.
And our second person is Jeffrey Wolf regarding visitor policy, registration, and transparency.
Hi there. You guys remember me. So I was here on January 27th discussing transparency, and I received this letter somewhere around February 15th. It's post-dated February 13th, and it has a January 28th date on it. So this letter was written the day after I came in, sent out 2 weeks later, and it's a generic letter. None of my questions were answered in regards to who the person was that came into the school to interrogate my child, how this person came to interact with the school district to interrogate my child. And, as I stated last time, Christopher Williams is allegedly in the room. I spoke to my son about that. He said he doesn't remember anybody being in the room other than the attorney for child that was there. And I'm still concerned about that because I was told about transparency, and I still haven't been contacted. I still haven't been informed about who this person was, how they contacted the school, and none of that. And that's concerning to me because this has happened before. And I clearly stated before my son started school that I wanted to know who came to the school and spoke to my son, regardless of who it was. I needed to know. I'm the sole legal custodial parent. I'm not just some regular parent. I don't have joint custody. I don't have shared custody. I have sole legal custody of my son. And I recently found out that my son's mother is homeless. And when I found that out, I called up Wendy Pagnotti, because she's the person that does registration and all that. And it was a simple question. I asked her, hey, could you tell me the address of the other parent? And very snarkily, she says to me, why are you asking me? And that's a little concerning because I'm the sole legal custodial parent and I should have the right to know what the address is of the other parent if I just found out that that woman is homeless. And the school should know because she should have updated the school. She then tells me that I should be communicating with her. I don't really communicate with that woman because it's very difficult. I've talked to Bob about this. I've talked to Kristen about this. And, you know, her telling me that I should be talking to the other parent and snarkily asking me why I'm asking her, when that should be something that should be updated with the school and that I should have information to because I am the sole legal custodial parent and that's part of my son's school records. And I still don't have confirmation from that. She then, at the end of the conversation, stated to me that she hasn't been informed of anything yet. I'm defeated. I'm tired. And my son continues to go to the school, and while he's having a good time right now with Miss Maniaci and Miss Bucella, who are very nice teachers, and he's thriving, and I'm going to talk with Krista next week about that. She already knows. But there's no transparency. I haven't been informed. Bob hasn't contacted me. You know, April was in here today, and she was going to talk about what's happening to her son and how her son's being bullied. And Bob ended up speaking with her in private about that. There's a lot going on at the school. You know, you guys all know this. You know, not just the money, not just the bullying, not just, you know, the teachers leaving. There's a lot. And I'm concerned as a parent about everything that's taking place, not just to my child, but to other children in the school district. And if it's happening to me, it's happening to other kids and other parents. I just would like to have some transparency. Thank you.
In accordance with Public Officers Law, Section 96, Subdivision 1, I would like to call for an executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person and legal matters. We have a motion? Sherilyn? Second?
Second. Give it to
Who?
Janet. She's got senior.
Janet? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the time is 16? 8:16?
It's a glare, 8:16.